Hello, welcome to Dish Shelved with Adam White. I'm going to talk about a couple books today that I read, which is kind of the whole point of BookTube, obviously. Uh, and the first one is called Below by Laurel Hightower. I read both these on my Kindle. I can't get the pictures to show up on my videos, so you'll just have to do without the pictures. Sorry. But it's called Below by Laurel Hightower. It's a short novella, uh, and it was a really interesting book. Criminali brought it up as a book to read over the weekend a couple weeks back. Yeah, it's been probably more than a month now. But he said it was a fun horror read over the weekend, and I thought I'd try it out for that, and it turned out it was a really good book. The most interesting thing about it was is that it starts out with tension. There's a lot of tension in the book when it starts out, and it keeps building throughout the whole book. And that's something that I think really speaks to the author's talent, because it's hard to start out with it, especially, but to maintain it and keep it building throughout is a really good feat. And it just was tense through the whole thing. It's about this girl named Abby, and I can't say a whole lot about the plot because it is a short novel and I don't want to give anything away. But she's just gotten out of a bad marriage, and she can still hear her ex-husband's voice telling her she's doing everything wrong. She has a real self-esteem problem, and that's another one of the themes of this is her self-esteem book. And it's about her, whether she trusts herself or not. And she has a hard time trusting other people, and she just has a real problem believing in herself. And you see that as it changes and builds over the course of the book. Also, it has supernatural horror elements to it. I can't say a whole lot about that, but without spoiling things. So let's just say that it takes place in West Virginia, which of course is famous for the Mothman, and you see what may be the Mothman in it, maybe, maybe not. You see some other supernatural horror elements. There are some uh, gory moments and just surprises as it goes along. She goes basically through almost a living hell in the ordeal she faces in this story. And again, I can't say a whole lot more because I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that it had a really nice story arc for the character of Abby. You get a good beginning, middle, and end for her. And you wonder whether she's going to make it out of this situation she's found herself in, which is really horrifying throughout. And you don't know whether she's going to make it or not. And a lot of that comes from her self-doubt, and will she give up or will she persevere and make it out of this situation. And so it really is about her and her journey. And to do that in a shorter work is really impressive for Laurel Hightower. And I think it is a great book. It's a short book. I read it in one setting. I highly recommend it. Great short horror novel. And it just really, like I said, it had that real tense suspense throughout from the very beginning. And some of the things you find out are there are some surprises, and you're left feeling like you got a full story for this character. So that's all on that one. The other book I read was the second Will Trent book called Fractured by Karen Slaughter. A while back, I did a video on Triptych, which was the first Will Trent book. I liked the TV show, so I wanted to read the books. The books are a little bit different from the show, but this book, Fractured, was actually the basis for the two-part premiere of the show. So they stuck so close to the story in it that I kind of knew what was happening as it went along. And so that kind of didn't really spoil it for me, because it's been a while since I've watched those first two episodes, so I didn't remember exactly how it ended. But you've got Agent Will Trent of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. There's a woman at the beginning of the story, a mother, who comes into her house to find her daughter murdered, and the murderer standing there, and she takes out the murderer. And then Will Trent comes in and sees a whole different story using his powers of observation, and turns the investigation completely on its head. And I don't want to say much more because I don't want to give it away. If you've seen the TV show, then you know what I'm talking about. But uh, it really it was an effective way to start this story, because you see that you're getting one thing and your perception is one way, and then it gets turned on its head. You get the perspective, in especially in the first chapter, of the mother of the victim. And I'm wanting to say her name was Abby too, but I can't remember right off the top of my head. Then you get the perspective of Will Trent, and you get the perspective of Faith, his new partner, and his partner on the show. And you get the three of their perspectives as you go through the story. So you're seeing what happens to the different types of people based on what they're encountering during this investigation. You see the impact on the mother. You see the impact it has on Will Trent, because it deals with he encounters someone that he went um, through the foster care system with, who's done something different with his life than what Will Trent has, who doesn't like Will Trent, and so you get some tension there in the book. You get Faith, who was a young mother and who now has a son in college, even though she's not, she's still in her 30s, and because she had him early. And you get her reaction to this investigation, knowing that a mother is, has lost a daughter. And you just get her sense of her perspective of the situation and how she can sympathize with her, because she's a mother too. Uh, Really interesting book. Like I said, a lot of it felt familiar because they'd used it in the TV show. The first book they didn't use anything from, but and it was a really good book too. Triptych was, and it had different perspectives too, and it was a really good book. But just Karen Slaughter writes a really good mystery book. It kept you guessing the whole time, even if you'd seen the show. Unless you've seen it recently and just remember everything that happens in it, you still get some surprises along the way. It was just a really good mystery thriller, and I'm looking forward to reading the others. There's 10 out, but I got a special bundle of the first 7 books, so one may pop up again here in the future, but you just follow you follow his investigation, and you find things that he doesn't know because he's dyslexic, which I've talked about in the last video about him too, but it's not a secret to the reader anyway, that he's dyslexic. So some of the things that they get during it depend on being able to read it correctly. And so he misses some things in the investigation, and he learns to rely on other people, which is something he doesn't do very well because he grew up in the foster care system and never had a real family. And he has a hard time trusting other people. He doesn't want people to know he's dyslexic, and he really has to learn in this one that he does need to learn to rely on other people because they can help him and make him a better investigator. And so that's a really interesting character arc for him in this book. And you just really get a good sense of uh, the character work that Karen Slaughter does in these. She has really interesting characters that you're invested in, and has a just a really good mystery story at the heart of it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I do highly recommend it. The Will Trent series is really good. It's the best mysteries I've read in a while, and like I said, it's kind of mystery thriller. Not a whole lot of thriller, but some. But really good book, Fractured, and and like I said, Below by Laurel Hightower, really good book. I'd really recommend checking it out, especially if you're in for a short, suspenseful read. And thank you for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you guys again next week.